you didn't lose control. The context changed, and what you're doing is rebuilding with different types of stability in place.
I'm ahead of the game.
Hey there, I'm Kelsa. What started as helping people with their money at my dining room table grew into a 7-figure financial coaching practice. Now I teach others how to build a thriving coaching business of their own. Whether you're just starting out or you've been coaching for years, I'm here to help you make a bigger impact while doing what you love. This is the Financial Coach Academy podcast. Let's dive in.
Hey, coach. Welcome back. Today is a client seat episode where you get to listen in as I coach another financial professional through a real challenge they're facing with their own money. Because even coaches need coaches. And sometimes the best way to learn what coaching really looks like is to hear it in action. So today you are going to hear me coaching another coach through a real financial challenge of her own. Today, Michelle Kopp and I are going to talk about her money feeling out of control, unpredictable, and frustrating. Let's get into it, but first, let me go ahead and introduce Michelle. Michelle is a CPA and financial coach working for a financial advising firm that saw the value in financial coaching. I love that. She's currently living in Guatemala since November of 24. And her family, her husband, 6-year-old, 4-year-old, and 1-year-old, and she picked up their lives and made the move for many reasons, and they're very thankful that they made the change. She was able to continue working her remote job and absolutely loves being a financial coach full-time while living in Guatemala. She loves the plan ahead method, which is now the spend first method, and loves making a difference in her clients' lives. She's thankful for us and the podcast and everything she's learned. Thank you so much, Michelle, for that little added testimonial there. Welcome to the podcast and your coaching session. How are you feeling coming into the conversation today?
I'm ready to go. I'm looking for some help and looking forward to getting some advice.
I love that. So summarize for me what it is that you would like to achieve or focus on today. Like, what is the challenge with your money right now that you're experiencing that you would like us to focus on today?
Yeah, so generally, I think it's just managing spending because in Guatemala, a lot of things we pay for is cash. So bills and spending. And so I've never been good with cash. So I love the plan ahead method. It just organized everything for me. And I tried to do that here and it did not work at all. And it's just like a big mess. And so trying to figure out how to feel in control of my money with it still being like in, the way that I want it to be, but with cash now as majority of the spending and feeling like we know where our money's going because another thing too is things are significantly less here in Guatemala. And so we are like, oh, we should be spending less, but it's still relatively the same. So trying to figure out what that is. And I don't really want to be tracking every single dollar all the time, which is why I really like the plan ahead method. So yeah, just trying to figure out how to be more in control of our money with a completely different shift in how we manage it.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Before you left for Guatemala and you were managing your money and you were using the plan ahead method, did you feel in control of your finances, your spending, particularly sort of day-to-day part of your money at that time before you left?
Yes. Yep. It got a little iffy at the end because we were like preparing and buying extra things for the move and everything. But yes, I absolutely love that method. It turned around how I managed our money and yeah, it's been great for our family.
Okay. So the next
Mhm.
question I have for you, I'm not asking because I want you to like rave about the plan ahead method. That's not why I'm asking. I really want to gain
Uh-huh.
some insights about you and your behaviors and habits and, preferences and that sort of thing. So my question is, what did you like about it? Like what seemed to be working well for you? I know you had mentioned like you didn't have to track every penny and you really liked that. What
Mhm.
other things about your system of managing your money before you left for Guatemala seemed to work for you? What parts of those like really supported you in a way that worked?
Yeah. So obviously the spending account, having a separate one just for spending, that really helped. And we didn't have to like wonder how much we were spending every month in different categories and things like that. It was just that amount and we stuck to that amount. So I really liked that. And then sinking funds, obviously having a savings account for future expenses or potential expenses, that was always a lifesaver and really helped. And then just, the spreadsheet and planning ahead, I had it like months in advance. And yeah, I can't do that now. Or I tried. Yeah, there's a couple bank accounts and just things with Guatemala that I haven't been able to do. But I really liked being able to see into the future and what my finances were going to look like down the road, 6 months or something like that.
Yeah. It gives you such clarity and peace of mind
Mhm.
and control, right? Okay. So some thoughts that I'm having coming into the session, you had shared that you feel like your money is out of your hands, unpredictable, unknown, frustrating. It feels out of control. A lot of it is because the banks don't work the same there. So this is like a huge adjustment. I mean, gosh, you're moving to a completely different country. You are learning so much. And this is absolutely just adding to a little bit of the
Mm.
chaos, the confusion, the transition, and all of that. It's a cash system by the sounds of it predominantly, even for things like bills, right? So we'll talk about that in just a second. One thing that I sort of wanted to establish as we jump out the gate here is I want to sort of set a realistic expectation that we're probably not going to create a perfect solution today for like every aspect of your money or your spending while you're there. But what I hope that we can do is figure out some of the big pieces, the bigger parts, and create some really concrete routines about around those things so that it doesn't feel so out of control. So
Mhm.
in other words, I think that our goal, but I want to talk with you about what your goal is, but I just want to set a really stable expectation here because I think the goal is to create stability so that you feel stable first. Sort of this idea of like creating something that you then feel like I can work with this, right? Because right
Mhm.
now, what I'm hearing is it just feels like total chaos and we don't even know where to turn to like figure this out. I don't think in 1 hour, one session that we can solve the entire thing. And I don't want to set that as the expectation, but I do think that we can stabilize it. We can help you to feel in control for the bigger pieces and the bigger chunks so that you can at least feel like I can work with this. And once this feels settled, then I can do the next thing and I can do the next thing. Then we can reassess, we adjust, maybe we add more elements or more routines at that time. But we really want to make sure that progress feels sustainable, right? So as we put these changes in place, let's make sure they feel really solid and settled. And then we add the next round of changes. Okay. What are you hearing when I say that? Does that sound reasonable? Does that sound like you were hoping for more, not even expecting that much? Just give me sort of a reaction.
Yeah, that sounds good. I think the bigger, like, big picture would be helpful. Like, we're currently tracking everything. Like, I created a
Mm,
Google form and I hate doing that, but I don't know
yeah.
what else to do. So just to get the big, as much as we can is
Yeah.
great. Any progress I'm appreciative of. So, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. This is really normal that when we don't have control over something or we don't really know what solution is, we sort of overcorrect, right? Well, like, let me just pay
Mhm.
attention to every penny or every dollar and see what that can tell me. But knowing where the money is going is not the same thing as managing it in a routine,
Right.
effective way. So we want to put some systems in place today, some structures in place today in that way. I also want to talk with you about how the Guatemala banking system works because I have no idea. And this is where I'm going to rely on you to be the expert on sort of how things work there. And then I'm just going to ask you questions. You will be the expert in that way. And then I'm going to be the expert in how we work within that system to make you feel financially successful. Okay. So let's
Okay.
dive into that first. Talk to me about going like what you're currently doing. So like how often do you have to go get cash out? Can you get cash out from an ATM and get it in like increments of 20? Is there a cash limit on how much you can withdraw per day? I'm probably going to have a ton of follow-up questions here.
Yeah,
So you just start, Michelle, with telling me what you think I might need to know
sure.
about how things work there and how you're currently needing to do things with the cash. And then we'll
Mhm.
kind of fill in the gaps from there.
Yeah, okay. I'm gonna just do a quick equation. So we can get daily 3,000 quetzales out of the ATM, and that's about $400. My husband handles like all the stuff. So he's put in a lot more administrative work than he had in the U.S. But with the bank, because I am a citizen, I have my DPI, which is identification over there. I had to open up the bank accounts. We actually started with one, and I had two accounts because I was trying to do the spending thing. And the banking system there is like, it's not real time. It kind of is, but not really. It's like outdated technology. So if I do a bank transfer, there's no detail for them or for me when I go back and look at it. Sometimes there is, sometimes there's not. So, like, you literally have to take screenshots of your transfer and then send it to your vendor, whoever you're paying, so they can record it on their end and that we have documentation on our end. Because if we go back in the bank, they might not tell us everything what it was for. So that's a pain. Also, because of the outdated systems, the app wasn't working. So we weren't able to transfer to other people. So I had to go to a different bank completely because that bank would not work. I had to go to a different bank completely and open up another account. And we only do transfers with that account because they charge if you open like a card, like an account with a card, they charge like every 10 transactions, you have to pay like a fee or something for it. It's kind of ridiculous. And there's lots of different banks, so they all have different little quirks. But so we have one bank for bank transfers and then one bank for our spending and account, but it also is where we take out cash, which is also where we have bills and stuff. So we can get 3,000 a day from the ATM. And that's about, again, $400. But yeah, what other questions about the
Great.
bank?
Thank you. That's really helpful. So you've got the two accounts. One is for transfers. One is for the spending and also bills. It sounds
Mhm.
like one of them
Yeah.
you can withdraw cash. The other one you can't withdraw cash, but it's for transfers specifically.
Mhm.
How does
Yeah.
money get into each of those accounts currently?
I fund it from our US bank account and I do like a monthly transfer to the one that I can transfer money to. That all goes there. And then I make transfers to the other account where you're just using the card and spending and cash whenever we need more money in that account.
So you've got your US bank account, and then once a month you transfer into the transfers Guatemalan account. And then
Hmm.
from there, you transfer what you need into the spending account and withdraw the cash and pay bills from there.
Exactly.
Okay. Is the transfers account just for that transfer, or are there vendors you pay because you need to transfer out for that?
There's vendors I pay. So like car repair, I use that account. We give a monthly donation to a center. We use that account. So anything that I can do bank transfers for, I use that. So it's bills or anything that comes up.
Okay. So vendors or bills can come. So this is where it's like there's the transfers account and the spending account, and they both pay bills. They both maybe pay
Mhm.
vendors depending on if it's a cash that you need to pay vendor or if it's if you can do a transfer.
Exactly.
So they're both bills, spending. The compartmentalization is really tough. How
Yeah.
often, give me an idea of how many vendors want cash versus transfers. And do you feel like you've got a pretty solid list where you're like, here's the ones we do transfers for, and here's the one, or does that part feel chaotic to you?
Yeah. No, that's pretty clear. Like now that we've been here a year, we know who accepts transfers. There's like, I don't know, I'll throw out a number 10. And then when the new things come up, those are mostly cash. Sometimes they're a transfer, but like, if he needs to get a repair on his bike or something, that's cash. If we have to, I don't know what else I'm thinking of. But yeah, new ones that come up are usually cash. Sometimes they're bank transfers. But like our solid ones that are like monthly, we know who's cash and we know who's transfer. Like that's pretty clear now for the bills, at least.
Okay. Talk to me about sort of how due dates work there. So, like, do you have to do things really close to the due date? If you were to, let's say, do all of your transfers for the bills once or twice a month all at the same time versus sort of like when they're due, would that be allowed? Or would that make you nervous because things are a little chaotic and you're doing screenshots and stuff? Or how systematic can you be versus responsive is what I'm asking.
Yeah. So I'll give you an example. The trash bill comes around the 5th every month, and they like literally come to our door and we pay them for the trash for the month. So that's
Cash.
around cash. And for like the transfers, we'll get the energy bill that comes around the 10th ish, and then I go do a transfer on that one. But there is a time period to pay it. I think it's due within 15 days, so there's wiggle room on that. I don't know exactly what it is, but yeah, there's a little leeway in those areas.
Okay. How are you being responsive now? So, like, I get a bill, I go in there and I pay it, or are you trying to have some routine where it's like every Friday or on the 1st and the 15th or 5th and 20th, or just give me an idea of sort of how you're managing it now from a time or effort perspective?
I don't have a routine. So when
Okay.
they come to the
Okay.
door or when they drop off the bill, I just pay it so I get it done. And again, I tried to make like a spreadsheet tracker thing to say, okay, this has been paid. I haven't looked at it again. And I knew this about myself. This is what I did before the plan had a method. I would make these spreadsheets, but then never look at them again. And they weren't super helpful, but yeah, it's not systematic at all.
Okay. Okay. So, number of thoughts. Thank you so much for explaining all of that. Before I dive into suggestions or, we start navigating and brainstorming this, a couple more questions around the spending and the ATM withdrawal. Is
Mhm.
the 3,000, and I'm sorry, what did you say the currency was there? What is it called?
Yeah, quetzales.
Quetzales versus
Quetzal.
like $400 cash. Is that enough? Like, is that for what your needs are for cash? Is that seem to be sufficient? Talk to me about that part of it right now. How often are you going and taking cash out, I guess? How often are you taking the max out and then like the next day, like, oh, I need to go get more? Just talk with me about
Yeah,
that, the cash part of this.
yeah. So, our spending in the States in quetzales is about 4,500 every 2 weeks. So that's kinda what it was around. So yeah, he can get $3,000 a day. So he usually has to go to the bank, I don't know, a few times a month to get what we need. Not everything, again, is from cash, but a lot of things are. Um, but yeah, we don't really have a systematic thing on that either, for when he goes but that's about 4,500 quetzales is how much we spend every 2 weeks, um, that we've kind of been managing.
So it should be like cash wise fine with how much you're able to withdraw and that sort of thing. So we don't have an issue
Mhm. Yeah,
there. Okay, good.
yeah.
Okay, that's great. Well, I wanted to sort of touch on a couple of reframes before we get into strategy and sort of practical steps and routines and that sort of thing. Because there's a couple of things that you wrote and you've also sort of said that I want us to reframe just a little bit. Okay. The first is around this idea of like, I lost control. You had put that in your prep work of like, we lost control.
Mhm.
And I it sounds like to me like you didn't lose control. The context changed and what you're doing is rebuilding with different types of stability in place. Okay. So like the system that worked is not even functionable where you live currently in
Yeah.
the way that you did it. And so we are reevaluating, we're constructing a new system, we're going to put better habits in place and that sort of thing that support the new context. It's not like you abandoned everything and you lost control. And I just want you to
Mhm.
focus your mindset around the system and the context needing your attention, not some moral failure or some lack of skill or
Sure.
ability that played out. Okay.
Yeah.
What are you hearing when I say that?
Yeah, I would agree. Most of the time I do that. And it's like, you did it wrong or you stopped doing the X or Y or Z. But yeah, it was a completely shift in how we manage money, how money works here. So yeah, a reframe it is a good idea and not
Yeah.
blaming myself
Okay.
for where we're at.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's an important just reminder for ourselves, right? Of,
Mhm.
whether we're internalizing something that changed and we're just trying to get ahead of it again, or we're trying to learn how this can work better for you, right? But
Yeah.
I would say what it shows me is that you are more than capable. You're more than skilled because you've already done it. You've already proven to yourself that like you can feel in control, you can put good habits and routines in place. And we are just going to discover what those need to be with your new lifestyle in a new country. Okay. The next thing is this idea around you had said we should be spending less. Okay. And you said
Mhm.
it at the top of the session, and then you also said it in your prep work. And I think it's helpful, productive, and healthy to compare how you were setting up your money before and what's going to work well, what's not going to work well under the new context, right? I think it's that kind of comparison so that you can gain self-awareness of what works well for you and what doesn't work well for you is really helpful. I think comparing apples to oranges of like, we should be spending less here than there because costs are less isn't healthy or productive because it's like comparing apples to oranges. Your lifestyle, it's not just the way that money works there, but your lifestyle, your schedule, your routine, what you want out of your life with your family there, how you spend your time, how you're able to travel. Every place is new living there. So it's like, yes, of course you want to venture out more than it's like you're a tourist in a city for the very first time, but now you're there every weekend, right? So
Mhm.
there's so much that is different. I want our goal around the next month or two to be that like you are going to discover your new baseline in Guatemala and not compare it to what you spent in the US. It doesn't really, it's sort of irrelevant what you spent
Mhm.
in the US because some things are less, some things are going to be more. The idea is like, let's first figure out your clear baseline. Let's stabilize that. Again, I think stabilization is sort of like the word of the strategy milestone that we're in now. Let's stabilize. Let's gain awareness of our new baseline, and then we can challenge it. It sounds to me like you're trying to challenge what's like your status quo, but we don't even know the status quo yet. Okay, so
Sure.
let's establish that first. And then you can sort of say, like, where can I maybe spend a little bit less? Where could we save a little bit more? Those types of things. But let's really focus on stabilizing first. Okay. What are you hearing me say in that?
Yeah, that's a good idea. I think I absolutely have been doing that. $600 there, it will definitely be less in Guatemala, for sure. And then when it wasn't, it was like, oh, what are you doing? You're, spending all this stuff. Where is it coming from? We had no idea because we had no way to track. And we started tracking, and we are going out to eat a little bit more and traveling a lot more. And so, yeah, that totally makes sense. Stabilizing our new life, our new spending, and yeah, what you said, our old is kind of irrelevant at this point because it's completely different. So that's
Yeah.
helpful.
And I think this really ties to the previous reframe that I want us to have, which is like, even if you are spending more than what you thought, questioning yourself and whether you're doing well enough or am I doing this right, as opposed to looking at the system and figuring out like, how can I stabilize this and figure out where it's all going? That way
Mhm.
I can then determine if I am overspending or if I'm not overspending or that kind of thing. But we don't even know yet. And you're sort of already placing
Right.
self blame there. Okay. So before we can be really intentional, whenever you big changes, and it's certainly like moving to a new country with your family, is a big change. There's always intended consequences and unintended consequences. So when you experience a big change, there's a number of things that we can map out and say, this is absolutely going to be different. How do we want to tackle that? How do we want to navigate that? How do we want to go into that aspect with intention? And we can plan for some of those things. But we also want to be really open when there's big changes to this idea that and there's going to be a lot of unintended consequences. And I want to stay really present and grounded and think critically about those when they happen. I don't mean self-critical, I mean critical of the situation. So when something happens, okay, let me first identify it, right? So identify the clear issue, like where is the issue at? Ask yourself what would work better for me and how can I create a baseline for that? As opposed to, and then we can get really intentional. We can challenge that. We can adapt it and say, I want to save more here. I don't want to travel as much, or let's travel a little less than when we first got here or something like that. But
Mhm.
we want to know what that baseline is first. And so all of this is like really connected to sort of creating this perfect storm that I just wanted to talk about before we go into, okay, here's exactly the routine I want you to have with when you're pulling cash
Sure.
out. Okay.
Yeah.
Because it's sort of the mindset, but then also the practical guidance around it. Okay. So let's dive in now to, I think the best approach, and we're going to talk big picture first, and then we're going to get more and more specific and detailed as we go. I imagine that you have two plan ahead method spreadsheets. Okay. So that's sort of how I want you to think about it. They are both going to have bills and they're both going to have spending, and they're both going to maybe have some bucket system attached to it. I had asked you what you liked best about your last setup before you moved and what parts helped you to feel most in control, like really what was helping you the most. And you had
Mhm.
mentioned the spending account, so you didn't have to wonder, right, that was it. And then the sinking funds for future expenses, that those were really like the main things. And then also planning ahead, which I think we can't plan ahead until we stabilize those other moving pieces, right? So we're going to stabilize those moving pieces. And then I want to talk with you about how you can plan ahead once you do that. Okay. So, but those
Okay.
two pieces, the spending and the savings buckets for future expenses, those are the two biggest things that I want to focus on. Because again, if we can put some routine, some sort of system in place for those two, not that that's going to solve everything by any means, but it is going to take care of the two things that are probably causing the most stress, because they were the things that it feels like the rug got pulled out from under you because they were the things
Mhm.
that you felt the most control in before. Does that make
Yeah.
sense? And I do think when there's a lot, we're trying to create a whole new system that's going to work for you. We don't want to assume that because I've done it for so long and this is how I've always done it, that this should be easy, right?
Mhm.
We really want to focus on what are the two big things that I can focus on now, really make sure that those are resolved. It's going to make me feel so much better. I'm going to feel more in control. It's going to make me feel more stable. And then I can tackle the next thing. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yep.
Okay. So when it comes to your two accounts, the transfers and the cash account, I would love, first of all, for us to come up with a name for those. Because, and here's the thing is they're both paying bills. So
Mhm.
very similar to like how you establish the plan ahead method initially. Sometimes we forget because once it's established, we then just work the system, right? We don't have to necessarily like reestablish it. But now you're sort
Right.
of back at square one again. But the very first thing you do is organize your bills or fixed expenses, the recurring things, by due date. Okay. So I want you to have two bills lists by due date. Okay. One
Okay.
that's coming out of your transfers account and one that's coming out of the spending/cash account. So we've got transfers and cash. What is a good name. We can keep calling them transfers account and cash account if you want. Is there a better name, or is there like a language that you and your husband use when you're talking about them, like the name of the bank or anything like that?
Yeah, we can use the name of the bank. So BI, Banco Industrial, is the spending, which is the bills and cash. That's where I have the card attached to that. And then BAM, is the transfers account.
Okay. So we really want to try and create like rituals. Okay. A cash system is definitely tricky and can be a little bit more challenging, right? And
Mhm.
what can like really add some calm to something that feels chaotic is a very ritual sort of check-in. Okay. Like the way we do it is very ritualistic. I think you know this, Michelle, but we'll just talk about it very quickly, which is when you live in sort of a cash system, it is going to require a little bit more time, effort, and attention, right? I think you're
Sure.
already experiencing that, like you're sort of realizing that. So I don't think I'm telling you anything that you haven't figured out. One of the goals I have is to minimize that so that it's proactive and intentional and very ritual versus
Mhm.
very reactionary and you feel like, "Oh crap, now we got to go and get the money because we forgot about this," and like that kind of thing. It can still be effort. It's the difference between sort of like scattered effort versus proactive effort where it feels very routine, very methodical, very ritual, okay? Versus like I'm just reacting all the time to what I need, all right? So, I also think it's important to recognize that the way you're doing it without some sort of ritual in place, while a ritual will maybe create a little bit of time and effort of like we're going to go to the bank on these days every week or something like that,
Mhm.
it's already consuming your thoughts, right? It is requiring effort already. I do
Right.
think that the new approach, one goal that we have is not, again, that it's effort free, because I don't think that that is realistic. And really, we just want to set some realistic expectations here, but that it feels like meaningful effort. My guess is, but correct me if I'm wrong, that a little bit of what's happening is we're putting in effort, but it doesn't really feel like it's doing anything good for us. Because you even said, like, now I'm tracking everything in a
Mhm.
spreadsheet. We've overcorrected. We're putting in time and effort, but it's not really getting us anywhere. It's not really benefiting us a whole lot. So we will hopefully clean up some of those steps you're doing so you don't have to do them, but they will probably get replaced with other efforts. But the goal is that those efforts feel worthwhile. They feel like I'm doing this because it totally makes me not have to think about money for another week. Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
So, with that being said, is weekly better for you? Or would like if we were to say like every Monday, you're going to sit down, manage money, go to the bank, do a transfer, do whatever. Is that better? Or is it like on a set date, like the 1st and the 15th or the 5th and the 20th or something like that? What do you think would work better for you if this was like your financial check
Yeah.
in and management day?
I think probably weekly would be better. I would feel better because again, the dates are all weird with like bills
Hmm.
and stuff, and it would just make more sense weekly to know
Okay.
what's coming or what we're planning on.
Great. Okay. What day of the week would be best for you? For either your schedule or your mind? Like, I know I'm more creative in the morning versus at night. Like, when would you? I love waking up in the morning and getting my cup of coffee and like sitting there and like playing with my numbers. It's like just something that I do. But what about you? When do you like to do it best? When do you like to check in?
Yeah, definitely not in the morning. With 3 kids running around, not gonna happen.
I don't blame you.
I don't even get the quiet time. But evenings, I like that's my time. So after we put the boys to bed, evenings would be a good day. And maybe honestly the weekend, because then both of us are done with our week and we have like time to like make sure we connect and then also talk about what the week is ahead. So maybe Saturday, maybe Sunday, one of
Okay.
those days.
We'll say Saturday is like the target day. Sunday is the day, like if you're traveling on Saturday or you get home late or you're out and about, Sunday's the last straw kind of day, right? Like that's the
Mhm.
fallback day. Okay. So we'll
Yeah.
plan for Saturdays. So what I want you to do is when you build your plan ahead method spreadsheet, okay? So the plan by paycheck going forward, I want you to have two of them. I have a business one and a personal one. So this isn't much different than that.
Okay.
So you might have three, you might have business, personal, personal kind of thing. And I want you to build it so that it's built every Saturday. So there's a
Okay.
column for every Saturday. Okay. Before I go on any further, I should have asked this earlier and I apologize that I didn't. Tell me what your husband's thoughts are about this. What does he think? What is he saying? What is his desire for contributing to some sort of habit? Like, will he go to the bank and do whatever we need him to do? Is he like, he leave that up to you? Just talk to me a little bit about what his thoughts and
Yeah.
contributions are.
So our rules have shifted a lot too in moving to Guatemala. We were both working in the States, and And then we moved and I continued working my job. One of the reasons why we moved was actually for him to do a career change and like
Oh,
fully become, fluent in Spanish and things like that. So he's doing teaching English, doing lessons in Spanish and things like that. So he kind of picks up the kids from school, does the errands, goes grocery shopping, does all the things outside, which is what I normally used to do, and all the stuff on the computer. I kind of handed that off to him. I'm also a tax preparer. So during busy season, I was like, good luck, go for it. And it was like a new system. And it was like, we were both like chickens with our head cut off, like
I
running
bet.
around trying to figure out how everything works. So he does everything outside of the house, which would be groceries, TM, like bank, all this stuff, errands and stuff. So he already is doing that stuff. But for him to have a better system, I got it to a point where with the Google form, where all he had to do was like plug the stuff into the Google form, and that helped him. He never really understood the plan ahead method spreadsheet. I always kind of managed that. So if we did use the spreadsheet, I would probably still manage that, but he would do like the outside stuff, if that makes sense, in the cash.
Totally.
But that's kind of how it's working right now.
Great. Okay. Yeah. I mean, yeah, you guys have experienced such a massive change to the roles in your marriage and with your kids and your work and how you spend your day, let alone cultural shifts and
Mhm.
routine changes and how you live and where you live and how things work and function and all sorts of things. I think it's great that he like gets shoved out the door because it's a great way for him to like be immersed in the language. Like you have no, you got to
Yeah.
go grocery
Yeah.
shopping and ask
Mhm.
questions sort of thing. I mean,
Yep.
that's what they say when you're trying to learn a new language is just to immerse
Mhm.
yourself in tough situations where you are
Yep.
forced to speak it. So good for him.
Yeah.
Good for both of you guys. I'm
Mhm.
so happy for you both. So I mean, I manage, sort of the updating as well, but Michael is super on board with everything. So it might be that you're like, hey, this week I need you to go. Here's how much you're going to take out. Here's the transfers I'm doing. So as long as he can see it and you guys have a form of communication where you're both on the same page,
Yep.
that sounds like
Yeah.
it'll work well for you guys. Okay. So every Saturday, you have your new budget built for both BI and BAM. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the next thing that you add to that once you build it, right? So it might not be that you have income coming in on every single one of those dates. I would recommend probably still the first Saturday of the month is when you do your transfer. I really like the idea that you do it once a month. You could do it twice a month if you wanted to. So like every other, but I wouldn't do it weekly. Just because we're setting it up weekly doesn't necessarily mean that you should do it weekly. Okay. So you should fund those accounts weekly. So you would have your income coming in when it comes in. You would then list your bills in order based on where they fall during that time. Okay. I like the idea, and you might already have something like this where it's like some sort of just quick coding system for yourself to help you stay organized. Eventually, you might not need this, but as you're sort of, again, getting settled, you could have like a T for a transfer, a C for cash, or whatever, where it's like, this is one that I pay by transferring it. Here's one that I need to go take out cash for, kind of thing. And
Mhm.
I would, a typical, plan ahead, like you're describing, like you used to have, all of the fixed expenses, we now call those spend fixed accounts, right? So your spend fixed category, all of your bills, those are usually listed in due date order. But I would actually have sort of two chunks. So it's like, here's the 3 that are transfers, and here's the 2 for this week that are cash. Because the
Okay.
idea is that way you can just do them very quickly, where you can total it up and be like, here's the cash that I need for this week for just the bills. Is
Okay.
this jiving so far and how you can
Yep.
visualize it? Okay, good.
Yeah. I see the spreadsheet in my head.
Okay, good. I was like, for you, it's hopefully very visual what I'm describing. It might be a little bit more
Yep.
challenging for somebody who's listening who, doesn't know what the spend first method or the plan ahead method is, but that's okay. We're gonna keep working through it anyway. So you have that. So you have the bills listed. That way, every week, I want you to imagine that even if we just did that part, which would be pretty straightforward and simple, at least that way we kind of know for the week ahead, here's how much cash I need, or here's the transfers that are coming out, or that kind of thing. Okay. And you're gonna have
Mhm.
that every week for the next 3 months, let's say. Okay.
Okay.
Then I also want you to have the cash withdrawal listed. So this is like your spending account. Okay. Because you do take some cash out of the BAM account, or you don't usually do any cash from the BAM account.
Nothing from the BAM.
Besides the spend fixed, the bills that you transfer from the BAM account, and then a transfer into spend your BI account, does anything else come out of that BAM account? Or are those the
Mm-mm.
2 main things?
No.
Okay. The only thing it sounds like might also happen in your BAM account is random one-time expenses like the car repair or something where you have to pay through transfer. Is that correct?
Right. Yes. Yep.
Okay. And for that, we don't know, like for car maintenance, let's say, we don't always know if it's going to be cash or transfer. So we can't have like one
Correct.
account for car maintenance. It's got to be a little bit in both.
Right. Yeah,
Okay.
or it could just be in the BI, but because that could do
Okay.
neither.
Are you able to transfer from BI back to BAM? No. So, the transfers only
No.
go one direction.
Yeah.
Okay. So my recommendation would actually be that you keep it in the BAM account. So we keep
Okay.
extra in there and we in our
Okay.
mind, and we could even indicate it on the spend first spreadsheet that it's for the non-recurring expenses. It's for the things that we're going to be spending in the
Okay.
future. This is one of those steps, Michelle, where I wouldn't worry about getting overly detailed about and over compartmentalizing that right now at this stage of things. Once we stabilize that, then that can be the next step where it's like, okay, now that all of these moving pieces feel much more solid, now let me refine with more clarity what the spend future is, what we call it now. That whammies category, that third category of expenses. Let me now get more detailed if I want to. But not
Mhm.
everybody does, right? Like some people just have one, bulk savings account for all the money that's going to be
Right.
spent in the future. That's kind of what we're talking about, where you would start, and then you can add detail to it after we stabilize. Okay.
Yeah.
But my
Okay.
recommendation is to keep the bulk of that money in the BAM account, because you can always transfer it to the other account. But now I would keep a buffer in the BI account in case you do need to
Mhm.
take out cash for one of those things. But then I just want you to take it from the BAM account and reimburse yourself. Do you
Okay.
see how that should work?
Yep. Yep.
Okay. So out of your BAM account, you fund it, by week or bi-weekly, whichever you end up choosing. Sometimes it helps to start more detailed, like weekly, and then we can simplify that over time. It really just depends. And
Mhm.
other times it's better to start simple and kind of add more detail over time. For you, I would start weekly, knowing that you can always, once you feel more in control of it, do it every 2 weeks if you want. Okay, but start weekly. The money comes in, the amount for bills, the transfers for bills is listed there. And then the transfer for your spending account, okay, for
Okay.
the BI account is listed. We'll talk about how to determine that amount in just a second. Okay, so I know we don't know the amount yet. We're really just talking about the flow of your money. So your BI transfer happens, and then you have on your budget, like how much is sitting in there for those one-time expenses that you might need coverage for. And that amount should be growing until you use it. And so you should kind of see this BAM account growing until you need to use it for something. Either you're going to transfer it to the other account because you need to pay for one of those one-time expenses with cash, or you can eventually transfer it and it might take the account lower, but you should see that amount continuing to grow in your BAM account. Can you visualize what I'm describing in your head? And can you sort of share with me what you're envisioning
Yeah.
as plays
So
out?
I see two spreadsheets, one for each account. And yeah, the BAM would hold, the bills, or on the spreadsheet, the bills, and then just have a buffer in it for sinking funds. We would continue to keep money there, like from my US bank account to BAM, keep a set amount for like the sinking funds, and
Hmm.
then do the normal weekly transfer. That's what you're thinking. A weekly
Hmm.
transfer from BAM to BI. Okay. Yeah. So doing that, yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, great. Perfect. Yep, you described it beautifully. So we're going to do that every single week. And now let's talk about the transfer. So you're going to transfer into the other account. And out of the BI account, this is your cash account, you have some bills and you also have spending that has to happen out of that account, correct?
Mhm. Yep.
Okay. And the only bills you pay out of that account are ones that are paid via cash, or no, because there's some that go on your debit card for that account as well.
Some of them are like, there's this one, I can't find them in BAM. They're a bank transfer, but I can't find them anywhere in BAM. There's like a services, whatever. It's only in BI. So I can only pay it in BI. So that one is a transfer in BI. But yeah, most of them, the other ones are paid in cash or BAM for
Okay.
transfers.
So again, you were going to have your weekly plan for this account as well, for your BI account. When
Mhm.
that transfer, just like you would have your separate bills, where it's like, it's almost like here's the digital section and here's the cash section of my bills, right? And
Mhm.
there's only one
Yep.
digital, which is that one that you have to pay because you can't find it, but that's listed based on when it falls in the month, right? So you know the date of that. And then you also itemize out the cash bills that you need to pay and you put them where you need them. That way it's very easy to be like, okay, this week we have, 400. I forgot what you said the currency was again already. I literally already
Quetzales.
forgot the name, but
Yeah.
um, we have 400. So we need to go to the bank and get 400 out for these 3 bills that we have this week. And even though they might, one might need to get paid on Tuesday when they stop by, the other one is on Friday, that is totally okay. I would still really like you to pull out the amount of cash you think you need. Do you think
Okay.
that will work, or how much fluctuations in these bills are you experiencing? Or if we were to sort of like round up, we would be okay. We might have a little extra, but it wouldn't be that big of a deal.
Yeah, the cash ones are I think are pretty consistent, so that
Awesome.
won't be an issue. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. So you're you now have like a Saturday ritual. We're managing the BAM account. We're now managing the BI account. So we know exactly how much cash we need to withdraw from that. The reason I like you doing this weekly for a little while is I think eventually you might just have a routine number that your amount that you're able to withdraw for bills that sort of like manages it. So it's like, yeah, you might have some extra that rolls over, but you know, you need it for the next week and that kind of thing.
Mhm.
And that would make it even more effortless. But for now, we don't know that amount. So again, all we're trying to do is stabilize. But this is one of those like, next, you could maybe start to see a pattern in how much you're taking out for those bills and just even it out a little bit. Almost do like an average. That way it's a lot simpler. I mean, I try to,
Sure.
what I'm imagining, Michelle, is instead of, you know, communicating to your husband, like this week, I need you to go take out 400. And then the next week, you're like, okay, this week, I need you to take out 200.
Right.
It's like, you get to a point where it's like every week he just knows he takes out 300 and
Mhm.
he brings it home and you sort of manage it from there. I think that would bring some ease and simplicity to it. We just don't know that amount yet. So that's one of those patterns you can sort of pay attention to. Is that
Yeah.
jiving?
Yep, that makes sense.
Okay. So now let's talk about your spending. So this is the amount that you're going to take out for your day-to-day spending and that sort of thing. I know you had mentioned that some things you pay for with debit card and some things you pay for with cash. Talk to me about that. Do you want to have both? Do you want to have some spending allocated so that you're using your debit card? Would you rather try to do all in cash for spending? Is it okay to do a little bit of both? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, so there's like grocery stores, we use our card, but he can use cash and he has used cash. But then there's the mercado, which is the market, and that you only get cash. So that, obviously just cash. So we could go all to cash or all to spending. It's just having a ton of cash in your pocket. He has his money clip and it's already like bursting at the seams. So that's maybe why we've done both historically. But yeah, either one. We could use cash everywhere except some places. A majority of the places we could use cash everywhere, but yeah, we also can use the spending card for like grocery stores and things like that. And gas. We usually use the card for gas too.
What are your thoughts about, I think it's quite valid. So thank you for mentioning it. This idea of like having too much cash on you is maybe not the safest route or the most practical. So how do you feel about if there was a random number that we set on the budget? Let's say it's $100. I'm just making up random numbers here every
Mhm.
week for spending on the debit card. And once a week you went in there and you sort of like just updated that number with what was actually spent. Something that sounds tedious and annoying to you and like something you wouldn't want to do? Or is that like, yeah, that wouldn't be that big of a deal. I'm in there once a week anyway. I can just update that number so we're on top of
Yeah, so just I think that would probably be fine to do. We haven't done it historically. We were kind of using the spending account, like the card, as our spending, but it just didn't work out that way with, bills and all that stuff. So I would have to like separate out the bills. So like it's all on the account has the card and the transfers. So like looking, I would just have to you're saying every week go in and see what the card transactions were and just put in like what the number is. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Okay. So let's talk through this. I'm glad you're bringing it up
Mhm.
because the BI account, which is the one we're talking about,
Mhm.
is where you take cash out for the bills, except for
Mhm.
one bill that happens every month. That's like a digital. So
Mhm.
we only have one thing that's not spending money on the card, and that's that one bill. And then we have cash
Sure.
withdrawals for bills specifically. And
Mhm.
then what we're talking about is just having some spending transactions that you guys are using on the debit card. Are there
Mhm.
other transactions that you're saying if I looked at it, I would have to sparse or sort of like
Maybe
partition out?
yeah, now that you laid it out, I don't think so. That summarizes all of them.
Okay. Okay. Because it could be that I'm not aware of something and that would be okay
Yeah.
too. So, okay. Because my thought is that I think what I would like for you to try, because again, we're just trying to go create a baseline here, right?
Mhm.
Is let's say you had $100 a week earmarked for debit transactions where you're spending money. And then we also have a set amount, and I'm just making up numbers, but another 100 that you take out in cash every week that is for spending in cash. And
Mhm.
once a week, so on Saturday, I'm sitting down, I'm transferring or I'm getting ready for the week ahead, but all I'm doing is I'm also just updating the actual number for the transactions from the past week. And so instead of $100, you might update it one week and it's like it was $82. The next week it was 107. But so it's pretty close. In other words, the goal is just to make sure that we're staying on top of sort of how much is realistically in the account. But
Yeah.
real time, it's not about judging whether you went over by $7. So if you have to update it for 107, that's not the point. The idea is just to kind of create this baseline and be able to see it. So if for the next 2 months, what we see is every week you're spending about $125 on average on the debit card per week, then we want to update that going forward just so that we have a realistic target of like every week there is about $100 to $125 that we use on the debit card that I just want to know is coming out of the account. And then once a week at the end of the week, I update that number with what actually went out. And again, even in the future, you might not even need to update it. It might not be that important, but I think at first it's more for pattern recognition to be able to see like what number are we really talking about here.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. So on the spreadsheet, it would be 4 lines or no, every week. So it'd just be 1 line every week because we're doing it on Saturday. And I would update the number looking back at the prior week and say, 125 was debit card transactions, and then whatever 100 was for cash.
Yeah. So visually speaking, let's break this down. And this is where like I wish I had a spreadsheet in front of me. We would just visually map it out. But so you have each week, every Saturday, the dates at the top.
Mhm.
You have the amount that's in your account and when money comes in that's noted on there. So you can either transfer weekly, transfer twice a month, like we were saying, once a month, whatever is easiest for you. You have in there when the digital bill needs to get paid. The one bill that you pay digitally, that would be listed in the week that it needs to get paid. You would then have the cash bills, the amount on there for the cash bills coming out. And I would separate that. So even though you're going to go to the bank and you're going to take out of the ATM some money for bills and some money for spending, I would list them very separately on the budget. Okay. So it's like
Okay.
you can color code them however you want to do it. So here's the amount that I need for bills. And then here's my debit transactions for the week for spending. And then here's the cash withdrawal for spending.
Okay.
So it's 4 columns because it's probably 4 weeks in the month, right? Might be an extra one in there every so often. And then there's 4 lines that you're tracking each week, and that's it.
Mhm.
So we've got those set amounts that are listed in there, and only one of them gets updated after the fact, and that is that spending on the debit card. Does that make sense?
Okay.
All of the other
Yep.
ones are planned for the week in advance, and you should be able to see them well in advance. But even then, like I said, even though we're updating that spending on the debit card number after the fact, you can still have it on there and be able to plan ahead that way. Because again, whether
Right.
you spent 100 or 107, in the grand scheme of things, Michelle, that's not a big whammy to your financial position, right? So like you're still able to
Mhm.
plan ahead and see how you're doing. And that's the
Mhm.
sense that I'm trying to help you have is just stabilizing, not perfect, but where it feels this I can work with, right? Like a
Right.
$7 fluctuation is not a big deal. I can manage that. Right now, it feels like everything is fluctuating and everything
Mhm.
feels a little, chaotic, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Cool. Okay, tell me what you're hearing that you like about this. Let's start there. So what are you hearing that you're like, okay, I think this could work. This is the part that I really am excited to try this maybe. What are you hearing?
Yeah. Yeah, I think having a set amount every month or every week to do, because right now he's just going whenever we need cash and it feels very chaotic and out of control, like I said. So having a set amount, I think that'll make him really happy. And then me happy to be able to track it on a spreadsheet so I know as well. I really like that. And then, yeah, the only thing that I have to go back in the bank is looking at the spending card. And that again will give us a good indicator of like, our 600 in the US, this will be our new number here, and trying to figure out what that is, but not worrying about, estimating right now, but figuring out like what we're seeing and then what is seen as a pattern. And that's the only one that I actually have to like go in to the bank and check. Makes it doable and is systematized. And I think that could work.
Yeah. Okay, great. I mean, you're definitely reflecting it back in a very accurate sense as far as like it seems like you're sort of seeing how this could work. I think one of the benefits that you want to sort of be paying attention to, Michelle, is a month from now. You've done it every week for a month. It should start to feel easier and easier, like really more routine. And it's like, oh, here's how these numbers are working. Here's how this is flowing. At first, it might feel a little clunky, right? I wouldn't judge that. I would say like this is a little clunky to start because it's new. It's a new process. I'm wrapping my arms around a little bit. But then a month later, I mean, even 4 weeks down the road should feel like you've got a good routine going. And one
Yeah.
thing I really, not just with the numbers and updating a spreadsheet, but also it's like on Saturday or Sunday, I'm checking in. On Monday, like clockwork, he has it that he goes to the ATM on Mondays. Does that make sense? It should feel very like a ritual. The
Mhm.
reason I really like rituals, especially when you're in a cash system, is let's say you guys are traveling for a weekend. It's not about perfect expectations or perfect rituals, but it sets an expectation so that you know when the exception is needed. So it's like we're traveling this weekend. I wasn't able to do it on Saturday or Sunday, but I need to do it first thing Monday morning because Monday morning he goes to the bank, right? And
Right.
so I need to give him
Sure.
that amount. Or it's
Mhm.
like, okay, so we're traveling on a Monday. We have the day off. It was a long weekend. We extend it through Monday. So we know on Tuesday you need to go to the bank because we normally do it on Monday and we weren't home. So it
Mhm.
really does establish the routine so that you know when there's exceptions so that you can modify, as opposed to everything feeling like it's an exception, which is right now. Whenever someone uses the word chaotic, it's like everything is an exception to everything. There's no rules, there's
Yeah.
no systems, there's no routine, there's no nothing. It's just everything has its own
Mhm.
reaction to it, right? So we really
Yeah.
want to try and remove that. Okay. I really also think that this will help you create those baselines so that you can start to map it all out for months in advance. Like you were saying, you're like, I used to have it months out and I could see it.
Mhm.
I just want you to hold on to this idea, Michelle, that a month from now, this is going to feel so stable. I really believe that you're going to be able to map out a whole month or multiple months out because you'll have a better idea of what these numbers really should be a month from
Mhm.
now. So like, what is a
Right.
good number for spending? What is the bills looking like for real, whether it's transfers or digital or that kind of thing. And I also want you to see that BAM account growing because that's where the random expenses are. Once you do that, you get that baseline for like everyday life while you're living there and how you're
Mhm.
maintaining everyday financial life. Then we can sort of peel away the next layer of the onion, which is like, okay, how much do we want to be spending on travel? How much do we really want to be keeping in this account so that we can see it grow because of those types of expenses? But I feel like that step will be a lot easier when every other area of your life, like the day-to-day part, is really stable and even and more methodical.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That
Yes.
totally makes sense. I'm looking forward
Okay.
to using it.
Okay, good. Good, good, good. Let's see. How are you feeling? So after talking through this today, what feels different in how you understand your money now that you're in Guatemala compared to sort of before we talked starting an hour ago?
Um, I think honestly, the biggest thing was just comparing it to what it was in the States. And we've learned in other areas, we just can't do that because it doesn't work. It either makes you really unhappy or frustrated. Of course, I didn't think to do it with our money too, but I needed to. So that just like starting fresh and, with a clean slate, seeing how much our spend here actually looks like. So that feels really good. And then I think just having a system to be able to use weekly, I think will help even just our schedules and him knowing when to go to the grocery store and when to go to the market and things like that. It'll help in other ways, not just our money too. So that'll be really good. And yeah, I think having this new spreadsheet will give me clarity as well and also feel like I'm back in control of like what I was feeling before. So yeah, I'm looking forward to trying it.
Good. Is there any part of what we talked about, mapped out, some of these routines and that sort of thing that you feel unclear over, or you're nervous about it, or you're kind of questioning whether it will work for you? Is there any part of
Sure.
this that you're hesitating or skeptical on?
I think potentially the cash spending still, again, not really knowing what that number should be and will it be enough? He'll be like, oh, this wasn't enough for me. Or, and he'll have to go back to the ATM or, we'll always have to have money on hand. But I know after we do it enough, we'll figure it out. But I think in the beginning, it might be a pain point in trying to figure out what that actually is. So.
Did you guys have a mindset when you moved to Guatemala, like that you shared with each other, where you're like, okay, our goal is just to experiment and go with the flow and enjoy ourselves? Or was there any sort of conversation around like, this is going to be, I'll give you an example. So when we traveled for the first time internationally with the kids, I mean, months leading up to the trip, we were like, this is an adventure. We're going to make the most of it. Like, even when things are frustrating or don't go as planned, like, we're going to stay calm. We're going to make the most of it. We're going to enjoy the chaos a little bit. We're going to do our best and like that kind of thing. We just kept saying, like, this is going to be an adventure. Like, that's the fun part of
Hmm.
travel, like, all of that.
Hmm.
Did you have any sort of conversations or mindset going into it like that?
Not at all. I
No.
think we were just like, whatever comes, let's see what it is. We knew life was going to be different and kind of just went in with that, but not really like a mantra or not even that, but just like a, hey, we're going to handle it this way. We didn't really think about that.
How would you say that you have handled it? If you were to
Uh,
summarize, like, this is sort of what we how we approached it once we got here.
uh, I think honestly, we're surprised by many things. So just taking it in and making it work. My husband is great at problem solving, so he's done a lot on, like, most of the living, but the money has been the one where it just I've been trying to fix it for him, and, he was trying to update the spreadsheet, and it just wasn't working. I think that was the biggest thing, but other like, yeah, he was able to do a lot of other parts of our life here, but yeah, the money piece has been
Okay.
a pain.
So this idea though, like we're gonna make it work, right? Like
Yeah.
we're gonna problem solve, we're gonna make it work. We don't really know what we're gonna see. We're gonna be surprised by things and we're just going to make it work. I think that that is absolutely okay. So one thing that I really want to encourage you guys to do as you are adapting the new system and the new routine and the new rituals is when you sit down, Michelle, I want you to update things because that'll just be sort of the role you play, right? You'll be
Mhm,
faster at it, more efficient. It doesn't take two people to do that part. And
mhm,
then when you sort of share with him, I really want you to ask him, how do we think it went this week? What worked? What didn't work? What did we like? What did we not like? And really just keep checking in with each other. Like, was the amount enough? Do you have any extra? What you be really careful sort of with your tone, of course, is like, did you have any extra from this past week? Is assuming that maybe there should have been extra. And if there wasn't, he did
sure,
something wrong or whatever. Like,
mhm,
it really is a series of questions we're asking, which is like, did it work? Did it not work? Did it feel like a normal week? Did it feel like different for any anomaly of a reason that we don't want to
mhm,
use this as sort of like a baseline week?
right,
Really just get very curious about talking about the spending amount
okay,
specifically of like,
yeah,
does this seem to be working for us? Do we want more? Did we feel like we weren't able to do anything at all? Because that's not the goal either, right? So
mhm,
really just keep checking in with yourself. Each week, allow yourself, especially at first, to change that spending cash withdrawal amount every single week. Maybe it's 20 bucks more here, 40 more, 20 less, whatever the case may be, just little amounts week by week. It should
mhm,
feel as if you sort of settle into the right amount through modifications, but also through communication with your spouse on what's working and what's not working. Okay.
okay,
And really,
yep,
your motto is like, we're going to make this work. We're going to figure this out. You know what I mean? Just the same motto that you guys have adopted this whole time. So, what is one thing that you want to do differently with your cash between sort of now and let's say a month from now so it feels more intentional instead of so unpredictable? So, what is just one thing you're like, I am going to commit to doing this?
well, I mean, what we've been talking about, I wanna go make the spreadsheet, like, now, and then look at we've been tracking everything, so I kinda should have a pretty good gauge, but I think just coming up with that number for him to have that set number every Monday to take out, that's the first thing that I wanna get to.
I love that because what I'm hearing you say is that you want to take it from sort of an idea, what we're talking about, to a plan. You want to see it
Mhm,
planned out. You want to see it concrete. You want to see it week by week. You want to firm it up, right? Like, I don't want it
yep,
to be abstract a little bit like it is right now. We want to
mhm,
actually bring some concrete nature to it, which I absolutely love. So I'm going to say, sort of your motto, if you will, for the session and sort of going forward with the things you want to do is from comparing, which is what you were doing, right? You were
mhm,
comparing to, I'm trying to think, to a plan we make work, a plan that we make work. Because you're going to hop off the session, you're going to run to your computer and start creating your plan, right? And then
mhm,
you're going to commit to making it work week by week with your spouse, figuring out sort of what's working, what's not working, and just staying really curious about it, being engaging with it. And so from comparing to a plan we make work, what do you think of that motto? How does that feel?
that's feels really good.
Awesome. Thank you for taking the time to do this session with me today. Any questions or thoughts or anything that you want to share sort of at the end of the session about how you're feeling, what you're thinking?
Yeah. I first it was fun to be on the other side instead of coaching. I get to be coached, so that was cool. I do have a couple takeaways that I would plan on doing with my clients, just from this experience, so that was a bonus. But yeah, I think just having someone else look at it from a third party and seeing what could be fixed, what can be solved, and having a system. Yeah, I'm pumped. I'm excited.
Awesome. I this feels and it sounds like the way you're sort of repeating it back and everything that it sounds like you get it. You can see sort of the impact of it, right? Not just abstractly, but like you're playing it out in your mind as you describe it, which is beautiful. And then just also remember, like, this is the first layer of the onion that we're peeling for you to regain control or feel like you're under control again, right? So then next, we've got a couple of other pieces that we talked about that you can sort of refine next, but those aren't the biggest concern right now anyway. I think we're putting a great plan in place for the biggest challenges that you're experiencing, the biggest chaos creators, right? Let's get it to a place where it feels nice and stable. Like, yeah, we can work with this, and then we can take it up a notch. We can go down another layer deeper of really figuring out how we can refine it and gain even more control next. Sound good?
Yep. Yes, that's a
Awesome.
good reminder.
Thank you
Thank you.
so much. This was such a great conversation. Michelle, thank you for being so open and letting us all listen in on what it's like to be coached through something so real. God, the idea of like having unpredictable, chaotic spending and feeling out of control is so relatable to so many people, regardless of the reason, right? It doesn't mean you moved out of the country. It can be for, you have a new baby or just a life change that really causes us to feel a certain way. Here's what I hope you take away from this session. Stabilizing is a great first milestone to shoot for, and you're likely putting an effort into your money no matter what. The question is whether or not that effort is worthwhile, productive, beneficial, meaningful, or whether it feels scattered or frustrating as if you're spending a lot of time and energy and it's not really getting you any further ahead. Sometimes having someone else walk alongside you can be incredibly helpful as well. Thank you for acknowledging that. It's important to help people name patterns, ask questions that you can't ask yourself. And those are the types of things that really get people moving forward, even other financial professionals who are good with money, right? So if you are listening and there's a financial challenge that's been weighing on you, picture what would shift if you had someone helping you not just know what to do, but actually do it. You can go to financialcoachacademy.com/client seat, financialcoachacademy.com/client seat, and sign up to be in a client seat session with me. Thank you again to Michelle for joining me today. You can learn more about Michelle and her work by going to verdecm.com. verdecm. And if you found this episode helpful, share it with another coach who'd benefit from hearing what a real coaching session sounds like. I will see everyone next week when I break down the details of this session and share what was going through my mind as certain elements and why I made decisions to go in a certain direction or not go in a certain direction. And I'll essentially break down this coaching session for you. I will see you next week, Coach.
That's all for today. If you're ready to grow your own financial coaching business, head over to financialcoachacademy.com for helpful resources and tools. If this episode helped you, hit subscribe and leave us a review. I'll see you next week.